Welcome to another episode of Realign to Thrive. I'm Diana Lockett, and I have a really special guest with me today, Christian Pankhurst. Christian is the founder of the Heart IQ communication system, the Heart IQ network, and also is the co-owner of an incredible retreat facility in the Netherlands called New Eden. I've known Christian for probably 10 years. I knew him virtually before I met him in person. And I've been following his work for at least that long. And it has been a massive change maker in my life, in how I view my world, how I experience myself, and how I experience my relationships. So Christian, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to our show.
Yay, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's really, truly my honor. Tell us a little bit about Christian Pankhurst. What's a day like in the life of Christian Pankhurst?
Wow. Well, I always consider myself to be a bit multidimensional. On the one hand, when I'm spending time at New Eden, I feel a bit like a farmer. I wake up, I feed sheep, I tend to the land, and I love that. It feels like it grounds me and nourishes me. And yet I have this entire other part of me that is spreading this work and helping people embody and deepen and open and to reconnect on a personal, relational, and collective level. So my day could look like, well, especially during this pandemic or during this whole period, online coaching calls, video creation. And right now I'm in the US, so I'm traveling, and I love that part of my world too, where I get to visit, connect with people, friends, do the work live in person, something I've missed and now get to enjoy again. So it's quite varied. There's nothing routine about my world for sure, but I'm blessed to live in a intentional community where we get to practice day to day, not just how to survive through these times, but thrive and to deepen together and do our work in the presence of each other, which is really, really powerful. So feeling very
You said,
blessed about that.
yeah, it sounds so juicy, so nourishing to be in your world, and truly it is, because I've been there. You've said a few things, and I want to unpack the different pieces that you've talked about in terms of the work. Before we go there, I want to ask you how you came into this work.
Yeah. Well, um, yeah, I sometimes have difficulty figuring out which is the best entry point. I would say I I believe that all children are naturally very, very heart intelligent. It's the conditioning that we experience through our culture, parents, religion, schooling, that can take away that natural, intelligent, emotionally adept, attuned capacity through factual based learning and drilling certain things into our intellect. So, what I feel is that from a very, very young age, I had these this felt sense, this capacity to feel others, this empathic capacity. I also had this what might be called a naive connection to a vision for the future, which seemed very well obvious to me, but not to everybody else, which was around why aren't we unified? Why do borders exist? Why are there individual countries? Why are we at war? Simple questions for a child, but it carried with me over the years, and it really sponsored a passion for deep spiritual meaning. But then when I encountered books and profound wisdom teachers like Neil Donald Walsh and others who wrote books like Conversations with God, I felt called to give people an embodied experience of that work. So I think my journey has been one of feeling this possibility of what humanity could be, and then wanting to bring that in everyday life through giving people an experience of the future today, so that I feel like I'm tapped into a possibility of potential, and I have a memory of that, and I want to share that. And it goes so much beyond just the personal work that people do with themselves or each other. I really am here for the collective. So there's something about humanity as a whole and the unifying field of the work that we do in group that I'm super thrilled and excited to share.
Amazing. And I love how you said you felt it was perhaps a naive perspective as a child, but really what I see it as a very progressive, wise intuitive and innocent perspective, like what could be possible before we all get imprinted and downloaded with what's impossible from whatever conditioning and environments we were in. And I know, because I've been there, that the work that you do is really about removing some of those obstacles and coming back to our truth, our innocence, through relationship, through connectivity, through heart-centered conversations. So I'm going to ask you now, what does it mean to be heart intelligent?
Yeah, for me, it means to be where our hearts are open and attuning to the world around us so we can feel uh, others, nature, ourselves, and be deeply connected to the impulses of all the rhythms and internal and external around us, and make inspired choices that are aligned and healthy with all the parts that we're attuning to. So it's about honoring the fact that we are multidimensional, that we have a spiritual lives, we have a very human life, we have relational lives, personal lives, shadows, parts that are deeply inspired, parts that are deeply afraid and scared and traumatized and walking wounded. Some parts are old and some parts are infant and young and in need. And some parts are highly independent and craving sovereignty and agency. And it's about putting that all together. So heart intelligence is the ability to actually hold our multidimensional nature and not be freaked out by it, and live in harmony with the fact that we are full of contradictions and paradoxes, as is the world, that the world is truly a reflection of our inner world played out collectively, and that if we want to begin to make true impact, it begins with mastering the divisions and internal conflict that lie within, between all these aspects of self that some we've embraced and some we've denied. So heart intelligence is a practice of integrating, and thus it's a practice of wholeness.
Yes, yes, and yes. That is an incredible summary. A summary of heart intelligence, a summary of the truth of who we all are. And so thank you very much for sharing that. And I will encourage people watching this to go back and listen to that a few times, because there's so much wisdom in there that you will be able to start experiencing the world through a different lens. And truly, we have that opportunity, and that perhaps is why we're here, is to remember who we are to each other, and how we can engage with ourselves, with each other, with this planet, to be greater versions of ourselves, or who we are in this moment. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're here today with Christian Pankhurst, the founder of the Heart IQ. And Heart IQ is a deep, embodied, heart-centered communication system that allows people to awaken to their truth. And Christian, I loved the summary that you gave of what it is to be heart intelligent. That summary embodied everything that I know to be real, and I think everything that I know I've experienced you teaching in the world. What does it look like to come into a Heart IQ experience with you in your world?
Well, one of the first things I say is, as you walk through the door in an event and an experience, which often are done in circle, by the way, in small groups. I do larger group events, but that's more for transmission of information. But when it comes to actually people doing the work, people are usually sitting in circle so that we can create what we call an amplified resonant field. What I often describe is, as you walk through the door, you no longer cease to just be you, but you distributed and split into multiple others. Thus, every single person in the circle is a representation of a part of you.
Like a prism.
Like a prism. And just like a prism, when you shine white light and it splits into the beautiful spectrum of those rainbow colors, every single person in circle offers an aspect, or what we call an emotional energetic range, that you either have access or limited access to. And it's the opportunity that you have in a particular embodied Heart IQ retreat to begin to be imprinted, to receive the transmission, the gifts of all these different parts of you, cleverly camouflaged as others, so that you can begin to embody and become expansive beyond self, the definition of self that you had, to include everybody else that's in the circle. So you grow through community, through others sharing their qualities, values, gifts, and ranges. And then we kind of do a swap, because other people have gone through a journey where they've developed in a certain area, and therefore other people are strong where we may not be so. And through a retreat, we get to, as I call it, get on the mat, which basically means do the embodied practice of trying on and expanding into emotional energetic ranges that can be supported by others who have access to it.
That's amazing. Let me give the audience a little example of what my experience was when I first went to New Eden in 2017. At that point, I did not have access to the emotional energetic range of anger. I was not welcomed in anger. It was not a welcomed expression in my house growing up, and I learned not to express anger. And when I went to New Eden and I saw people in circle expressing anger, first of all, I was massively triggered because I thought that wasn't okay. I had a judgment around anger, and therefore I had a judgment of anyone who expressed anger. And as I felt into the collective field, I started getting this imprint that maybe anger is not so bad. Maybe anger, in fact, is essential. And maybe anger channeled through the heart becomes passion and a source that we need in the world today. The imprint came to me very deeply when I was given an opportunity in a small group. So you weren't actually in the room at the time, Christian, but I was in a small group and I had left the large group and anger started bubbling in me. And instead of doing what I normally did, my habit to anger was to push it down, roll out my yoga mat, start breathing and flowing, and just pretend that everything is okay. I'm fine, which, by the way, stands for effed up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. And that was how I lived my life. And on this day, I knew that I needed to keep this energy alive. So we went to a break and I put on the raunchiest music I could find. And I went stomping along the neighborhood around New Eden. Like if anybody had been in my way, they would have been knocked over, because I just let this energy start building in me to the point where when we got into the small circles, group circles, I right away went, I'm taking space. I released the anger, and when I stopped, and first instinct was to want to go into shame, instead I looked around and everybody was loving on me. Everybody was celebrating me. People were in tears. And that moment was a massive moment, a massive imprint. Christian used the word imprint for me, that, okay, this is welcomed. This is not only okay, this is essential. So that's one of the imprints that I received. And there were many other that week, but that's one that really changed my life, because I now can use my anger as a positive force to establish boundaries.
Nice.
To ask myself, what am I angry enough in the world that I'm willing to make a difference, to show up, right? So thank you for that.
Yeah, I have a big smile on my face as I hear you share. That's so cool. Yeah.
Amazing. So we're going to take another break. When we come back, I'm going to show you one of the books that Christian has written, and we'll talk a little bit about what Heart IQ is doing right now in the world. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm here today with Christian Pankhurst, founder of Heart IQ and co-owner of New Eden, which is a beautiful retreat facility in the Netherlands. And Christian, thank you again for being here.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I love it.
We're having such a great conversation. And I wanted to ask you, what is, if you were to identify your superpower, what is your superpower that you get to deliver into the world?
I'd say it's what I call attuned translation. So what that basically means is, if you put me in a group, I will be able to feel the spoken, the unspoken, the tensions, and be able to decode what is happening at a group dynamics level and help different parties understand one another by getting into each other's world. So you could call that a form of mediation, conflict resolution, but more than that, I can use that group energy and amplify it to penetrate through defense, blocks, shadows, and help people awaken through the group field. So that's my superpower, is bringing unity consciousness into separate, individuated consciousness.
Great. And Christian mentioned the word shadows, and shadows are the disowned parts of ourselves that at some point we were told is not welcomed in the environment that we're in. So for me, anger was a shadow. Thank you. And this superpower that you describe, is it something that you believe everyone has the capacity and it's been taught out of us? Is it our intuitive, true nature, or is it something that you feel is exceptional in your capacity to be able to interpret what you're experiencing in your field and in your world?
It's both. I don't believe the skill to the extreme that I've developed it is regular, common, or even possible in mass. That's because I believe a lot of my skills being created through my trauma, and not everybody's experienced the same trauma. So a lot of the wounding that I've experienced has opened me up to becoming sensitive in certain areas where not I wouldn't wish that upon anybody, but I would say for sure a lot of humanity doesn't have that specific wounding. I would also say though that children, like I said, are naturally attuned to their environment. They are open and they are heart intelligent, and thus if we let and support that, I think so much more of this gift would naturally be available in the world for sure. But similarly, and I don't want to put myself up on a pedestal comparing myself to Mozart, but I'm saying that Mozart, he had a gift and it was from a very young age, and not everybody who plays the piano is going to be a Mozart. I was given some of these gifts. I received a transmission and I was put to work with this. So some of what I have been given isn't even from my own childhood or development or natural ability. It was something that I received as a transmission. I don't have time to go into that right now, but it's an extraordinary story. But I wouldn't do justice to this gift if I simply said, yeah, that's everybody's potential as well. I'd say everybody has the ability to upgrade their attunement and their capacity to do this, but this very much is part of what I bring specifically as well.
Yes. And so on one hand, I'm hearing you say you were able to turn your pain into purpose, right? Or your mess into a message.
Yes.
And on the other hand,
like
there's a
that.
deeper wisdom that's absolutely something that you were gifted
Yes.
to deliver into the world. And I totally would agree with that, because I believe we are all intuitive. I believe we all have this inner sense of knowing and this ability to have this felt sense experience in the world and to tune into each other. And we do have it conditioned out of us at a very early age. An example of that might be telling a 2-year-old to stop crying. They have nothing to cry about. And that's taking them away from connecting with their natural emotional intelligence.
Yes.
And then on the other hand, there's this part that you absolutely have a gift, and I've experienced it firsthand, and it's an incredible gift for the world. Christian has written a book called Insights to Intimacy. I think you wrote it in like 2016 or 2017. Is that correct?
Yes.
And it's a wonderful book, Why Relationships Fail and How to Make Them Work. Is it available on Amazon, Christian?
It is in Amazon all over the world.
Perfect. And then right now, tell us a little bit about how you've pivoted your work since this pandemic hit and we've become more of a Zoom society. How does that show up for New Eden or
Well,
for Heart IQ?
Well, actually, I'll explain both because there's 3 areas to this. On Heart IQ, we have this really wonderful service called the Heart IQ Dojo, which is where we basically invite everybody to bring Heart IQ into their homes with each other or by themselves as a personal practice that they do consistently, like going to the gym. It's like a heart intelligent gym, rather than going to an event that just happens to be a weekend or a short burst and then we go back to our lives. We're developing a ongoing gymnasium for our heart and soul to work on, and
Which is fantastic because we need to build this muscle, right? And we don't just do it once and then go home and expect
Exactly.
it to continue to grow. We have to keep working on it. Thank you. Keep going.
And then for New Eden, we are expanding our land and this beautiful center that we have. And we're going to open it up for people who want to come for a period of between a week to up to 3 months every single year and be part of intentional heart intelligent community. So we are inviting people to actually come in to live this work in person for a period of time that they choose, so it fits with their lifestyle, and the fact that most people have children or family or jobs and stuff like that that they need to attend to. So it's not always realistic for people to move into a community full time. So we're going to offer an experience of community for a period of time that works for others, and have New Eden deliver on that, so that it becomes literally a place where you can experience the future today and tap into that wonderful vibe on an ongoing basis to
Experience
stay
the
nourished.
future. Experience the future today. That's incredible. And if people choose to go there for the 3 month duration, are they working and doing their other life at the same time and integrating the Heart IQ practices in that
Yeah,
environment as well?
some of them are learning to become facilitators. It's their best
Okay.
environment to learn. Some of them are they're on vacation. They're there for a week or two and just want to thrive and be in that regulated environment. Some of them will be like digital nomads. Maybe they are leaders and other people who can work away from home because they bring their laptops with them. We have high-speed internet, and they just want to be in connection with other wonderful people while they deliver their work. And they also get to experience classes, meditation, a holistic center for treatments, and do other things like that while they're all part of that experience.
That sounds very nourishing.
Yes, indeed. I would say
And
if there's time as well, there's just one last piece to this, and that is one aspect of where Heart IQ and New Eden want to move towards is something I'm super excited about is creating a non-profit called the United Earth Foundation, where we can begin to collectively collaborate on building a new civilization, like a template for tomorrow's world, and to look at not just the spirituality, but the technology, the geopolitical aspects of it. And if we were to create a new credo, a new identity of like, let's all gather together, and what would building the next world look like, where unity consciousness is at the center of it? What would that be? That's what I'm most excited about now moving into.
I am so excited to see how that unfolds and to be part of that experience. I love the idea of having an opportunity to go and be in community to practice these skills. It's been difficult with this pandemic happening. And so the opportunity to practice in my home, in community with the Heart IQ practitioners has been incredible. I've been part of the dojos. I have one final question for you, Christian. So, given the climate that we're in, given what everybody's been managing or not over these last couple of years, what's one tip that you can give from your perspective from the Heart IQ practices that would allow people to realign to thrive in their current day? So someone who's not familiar with the practice, maybe can't quite get over to New Eden or isn't ready to join the dojo. Is there something that you can give people right now as a practice that
Yeah.
would help them to move towards more thrive?
Reach out. This would be my motto. And what that basically means is through our pandemic times, there's been so much isolation that creates depression, that increases stress on the nervous system. So much of Heart IQ is about doing our inner work together with others. And often that hasn't been possible live. And some people are a bit weary of doing too much online stuff in a group. But the tip for everybody would be when we are dealing with something, we don't stay alone in it. And to have the discipline, the willpower, and that inner resolve to go against the natural tendency to isolate, withdraw, and go inside, and instead just pick up the phone or get out WhatsApp and just go to a friend, a family member, somebody you trust, somebody you love, somebody you feel safe with, and just open your heart and talk and share and be heard and felt and seen. This is just a simple, but yet I get it, difficult practice, because often it goes against the very grain of what we tend to do naturally, because we want to do it alone. We don't feel uncomfortable. We don't want to burden others. Perhaps we've done it too many times in the past, or we've got judgments of it being needy and weak. Whatever it might be, it needs to be overcome so that we can stay in relation. We can
And
stay
that may not even be our natural tendency. That's our habitual tendency. Our
yeah,
natural tendency is to be relational.
yeah, yeah,
And yet at some point we've been told that that's needy, that
yeah.
we can't go to others. Suck it up, buttercup, all those things that we get told. So thank you. That's not at all what I expected you to say. And I think it's so relevant and critical right now that we understand and remember that we are relational beings, and it is so important to reach out to each other and to resist that tendency to contract and to isolate.
Yep.
And it is difficult. I know. I've gone through it, and I have to keep reaching out myself intentionally because my habitual tendency will be to withdraw. So
Me too.
what a wonderful,
That's
wonderful
why it's
wisdom.
the tip of the day.
It's fantastic. Thank you so
Because we
much.
teach what we need to learn the most, right?
Every day, every single day. Thank you so much, Christian. It's been such a pleasure having you here. I honor you. I honor the work that you do. I'm so grateful that our paths intersected. I will forever be following the work that you do and be one of your greatest champions and fans because I believe this work needs to be out into the world. Thank you very much for being here.
Oh, thanks for the invitation.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. Wasn't that a great episode? I am so excited to bring to you heart-centered leaders who are making global impact in the world as a beautiful imprint for all of us that we too can make a difference. Until we meet again, I'm Diana Lockett, and know that you can always realign to thrive.